So today we're starting off with a basic HR application. I can see all of my employees or filter by department and gender. When we look at our tab title, we can see that our app's document title is always an Ember app, or whatever we called our application when we started it, no matter what route we're in. So let's change our application title in our index.html and get started. Okay, great. So now we can see we've changed our document title. But obviously we don't want to do this in the index.html file. The only thing we really want to do there is set the base application name. Let's update our application route to change our document title to acme-cli-HR when it enters the route. We know from the Ember route screencast that the activate hook is called when the route is fully entered. So let's start there. So back in the browser, we can see that the document title has been updated by our route successfully. But now when I click on a person, I want the document title to contain information about the person we're looking at, almost like breadcrumbs. So let's get back in the code and add the activate hook to our person route. Great. So back in our browser, we can see the document title update when we enter our person route. But as we click through different people, our document title is not updating. That's because the activate hook is not fired when the route's underlying model changes. So this is obviously not the way to implement this functionality. So let's refactor. We'll start by removing our document title code. Now let's set up an action handler for the did transition action in our application route. The did transition action is fired from our target route when it's fully entered. As with all Ember actions, it bubbles up through all of the parent routes ending in the application route. So by implementing this here, we can catch all of our active routes did transition events in one place. So in our browser, we can see that when we enter the people route, our console logs out, I have completed a transition. And then again in our person route, but it does not fire when we filter people. This is because we are using query parameters and are opting out of a full route transition when they change. We'll get to this later. So back in our code, let's take our first step. First, let's add a title property to our application route. When the application route is the active route, this is what we want the document title to contain. The router keeps track of all route handlers for the active route tree. It stores this in a property called current handler infos. So here, let's grab the current active routes tree, and then we're going to pluck out our title attribute from each handler, and then compact to remove any undefined or null values, and then return the computed value. So let's just console log out our handlers as well as our path variable to see what they are. So we can see here an array with 3 C's. There are currently 3 active routes, or leaves, in our active route tree: our application route, our people route, and our people index route. If we open up the first leaf, we can see the handler property. This is an instance of the route handler for the application route. We also console logged out our path variable, which is properly reading acme-cli-HR, as that's what we set our application route's title to be. To show how our path variable looks with nested routes, let's add a title property to our people route, the next leaf in the tree. Now back in the browser, we can see that our path array has the title of the application route and then the title of our people route. So let's go back to our application route and complete our path variable. Right now we have an array of route titles, so let's join them with a space/space and set the document title equal to the path variable string. So now, back in our browser, we can see this is working. Great. So let's add our title breadcrumb to the person route. Now here we need to compute the current person's name, so this can't just be a simple string. We'll need to return a function that then returns the person's name. Back in our browser, we can see that we've missed a step. The value in our path variable for the user route is showing as a function, and not the result of that function. That makes sense because our path code is just plucking out the value of the title key from each of our route handlers. Let's refactor. Let's rename our handlers variable to leafs. Now let's update our path chain to determine whether the current leaf's title property is a string or a function. If it's a string, simply return. If it's a function, call it. Now we can see this is working. Great. Screencast over. Just kidding. There's one nice thing we should add. In many cases, I might want the document title to resemble the breadcrumb style that it has now, aka each route's title. But sometimes I might want to have a route that overrides the document title completely. So let's refactor our code so that when I enter the person route, the document title is completely overridden, but then resumes its current breadcrumb-like style once I return to my people route. We'll start by renaming all of our title properties to title token. Now let's update our path chain to look for the title token property on each leaf. Now let's just make sure we didn't break anything and check the app out in the browser. Nope, looks like everything's still working. So now, to make things a little easier to reason about, let's pull out our handler title logic into a separate method called getHandlerTitle. So the idea with our final solution here is to assume that the only route that can override the title completely can only be the activemost leaf. If the activemost leaf has a title property, use that for our complete document title. Otherwise, chain together all of the title token properties for all the routes in the tree as we are here, and use its concatenated value as our document title. So let's first store our activemost leaf in a local variable of the same name. Now, let's update the map step in our path chain to call our abstracted getHandlerTitle method. Finally, let's update our person route to have a title property instead of title token. So in the browser, we can see that it's sort of working. The application and people route is working, but our person route is not overriding the value. In fact, we're not seeing the person's name at all. Let's get back and finish our refactor. Our getHandlerTitle method takes a leaf and looks for the title token property here. It's not looking for the title property at all. And as a refresher, if the current leaf is the activemost leaf and has a title property, it should act as a document title override. So let's update our getHandlerTitle method to accept a second argument, prop. This will be the property on the handler that the method should look for. If none is passed, it will default to title token. Now let's create a new variable in our didTransition handler, activeLeafHasTitle. If this is true, our path variable should be equal to its title. Otherwise, our path variable should function like normal. So if activeLeafHasTitle, we'll call the getHandlerTitle with the arguments the activemost leaf as the leaf and the string title as the property. This will tell our getHandlerTitle method to return the value of the past leaf's title and not its title token. Now, back in the browser, when we navigate to a person, we can see the document title is just the person's name, exactly as expected. And when we navigate back to the people route, it resumes normal concatenated functionality. Awesome. But it would be great if you didn't have to do all the plumbing here and could just create your title and title token properties and everything just worked. Well, it can now with the ember-cli-document-title add-on. Let's refactor our app to use this add-on. We'll start by installing it. Now, let's remove all our logic from the application route. Now, the document title add-on functions slightly differently than our original code. In our application route, we'll create a title method. It takes a single argument, tokens. Let's see what those are by console logging them out. So after clicking around a bit, when we inspect the console, we can see an array with a single element, people. The document title add-on takes the title token property from all of the active leaves in the route tree, merges them into an array, and then calls the title method on the application route with that array of title tokens. Since we only have a title token property on our people route, we should expect to only see people in that array, and that's exactly what we're seeing here. So back in our application route, we'll set our title base to be Acme Co. If tokens were passed, we'll join them with the same space/space and add that to the base. Otherwise, we'll just return the base. And we can see it working here. And our override still works. The document title add-on allows you to override your document title with the same setup we had before. If the active route has a title property, the add-on will use that as the document title. Otherwise, it'll collect all of the title tokens in the active route tree and send them to the title method on the application route. So this is part 1 of a 2-part series looking how to manage the head tag more efficiently in an Ember application. I want to thank Kim and all of the other contributors for making this such a great and easy to use add-on. Make sure to sign up at the top for email updates on new screencast releases. Thanks for watching. This is Kyle from Build Lab.